The Trump administration is facing lawsuits and criticism for adding a question about citizenship to the upcoming 2020 census. Opponents say it will discourage non-citizens from participating and also reduce government funding in areas with large non-citizen populations who are not counted. The Justice Department says the data is needed to help enforce the Voting Rights Act. And the Commerce Department, which oversees the census, recently released more than 1,000 pages of documents about its decision to include the citizenship question. NPR reporter Hansi Wang has been examining those documents, joins us now. What did you learn?
Well, we learned that there was an internal memo put out by the Census Bureau for Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross that he looked over before he made his decision. And in this memo, Census Bureau officials warned that adding a citizenship question would be costly. They estimated that it could increase the cost of the 2020 census by at least $27.5 million. The concern here is that non-citizens, seeing that this question is appearing on the census form for the first time for all households since 1950, and also in this current climate of increased immigration enforcement and a rise of anti-immigrant rhetoric on the Trump administration, that all of this would really discourage non-citizens from participating, and so therefore more money would be needed, more efforts would be needed from the Census Bureau to make sure every person is counted in the country as the Constitution requires.
So besides the cost, this is the chief scientist that's in the Census Bureau. Are they concerned about the accuracy of it or the quality?
Yes, if there are fewer people participating, we're not going to get a complete count, possibly. You can try your hardest to knock on doors and to do follow-up, but some people will just do their best to not be counted.
What's the role of the Secretary of State, Chris Kobach, in all of this?
Well, what was interesting is that there were emails that he sent to Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross that was included in these documents. These were emails that were sent in July of 2017. And he said he was directed by Steve Bannon, the former White House strategist, to speak with Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross about a citizenship question on the census. And this is months before the Justice Department put in a formal request to the Census Bureau to get this question added for the Voting Rights Act, the Justice Department says.
So this is the Kansas Secretary of State. He makes these requests, but the Justice Department and the Commerce Department have given different reasons. They didn't say that this was part of their thinking.
The Commerce Department says they are responding to the Justice Department's request.
Right.
And the Justice Department is saying we need this for the Voting Rights Act, and we need it to better enforce Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which has provisions against racial discrimination, and they need better data on voting age citizens. And ever since the Voting Rights Act has been enacted, since 1965, they've used estimates of U.S. citizens based on smaller Census Bureau surveys, which only go out to a sample of households. And so they need better data, is what the Justice Department says. But looking at these emails, Chris Kobach does not mention the Voting Rights Act, and certainly he's referencing a phone call that he had with Secretary Wilbur Ross. It appears in the early days of the Trump administration. It's unclear exactly the extent of their phone call. I reached out to the Commerce Department to get more details. They wouldn't provide any details. And this email really should be considered, they said, as part of what Wilbur Ross looked at.
Are there other ways that the Census Department is trying to figure out who's a citizen and not a citizen besides just this question?
There is. Right now, they are looking into getting access to federal data sets from the Social Security Administration, from the State Department, specifically visa and passport data, as well as from the USCIS to look at the naturalization data. And this is all part of the plan that Secretary Wilbur Ross did approve at the recommendation of Census Bureau officials who originally said, you don't necessarily need to add a citizenship question. Maybe we can compile existing government data about U.S. citizens to create a more comprehensive data set about how many citizens there are in the country.
Yeah.
And so this is part of the plan currently, and we'll see how that pans out, because this is really new territory for the Census Bureau to use this data in this way.
So if this question is included in the census now, and if there is a significant undercount, what are the ripple effects?
The ripple effects are huge, possibly. We have to remember that the census numbers are used to really build our government. They directly impact how many seats of House of Representatives each state gets. It also impacts how the government from the federal level down to the local level, how legislative districts are drawn. And again, the federal dollars, how that $800 billion a year estimated is distributed. And that directly impacts which highways get repaired, which roads get built, how school districts decide where to build new schools and where businesses decide where to build new supermarkets. A lot of it is dependent upon these census numbers.
All right, Hansi Wang of NPR, thanks so much.
Thank you.